Hello everyone, my name is Sharik again, and in this video I wanted to demonstrate you live example of Azure App Service. This is a way where I can show how I demonstrate things while I train students on Azure platform. And this is more of a raw video that I'm making, and it's not really with the presentation, with other PDF stuff. So let's get started. All right. So we know that Azure App Service is more or less or is more like a platform as a service wherein you just bring your code and it starts running. Now, how that thing works is, let's suppose you are a company, or let's say you are a freelancer, let's suppose, and you thought of a business idea to produce some kind of a software as a service, or you thought maybe you wanted to deploy a web application for a client, and you don't really want to get into the nitty-gritty of setting up the server, setting up the web server, downloading the environment variables, etc., like that. And you don't really want to do that and get into these things. So what you thought is, how about you could use some platform where it helps you to manage all these background jobs? So that's wherein this app service comes into play. So it's very easy to create an app service. You just have to create a resource. Type here app service. And then you can click on web app. Create web app. Now, the first way that I'll be demonstrating you is with the console, which is present here. And another way is through VS Code, Visual Studio. So we will be deploying a basic C# application. In no way I am an expert in C#, but I do know C# to some extent, so that I can at least create a basic web application and deploy it to app service. And also the reason why I wanted to know C# is because in case I want to help someone, let's say I want to provide a service of helping company to deploy their web application, which I also have helped students in Django deployment on web app. So I should know what is the C# and Visual Studio and all those things. So one of the way is through console that we will walk through right now. First thing is resource group. We know resource group is more or less is like a collection of resources. It's like a bucket which you use in order to segregate your stuff. And when you go over and hover over this I button, you can see it's a resource group is a collection of resources that share the same lifecycle, permission, and policies, etc. So let's go ahead and create a resource group, which is, let's say, demo app. Okay. Now this will be the application, the name of the web app. So this will be the reason why it has .azure websites.net is it's a subdomain. This is the main domain so that you don't have to pay for it, and it's a subdomain. So you can just write it here, Sharik, and it will check if there's any subdomain right there. If not, then it will grant you that name. So your website will look like sharik.azurewebsites.net. And of course, there are features, there are possibilities where you can create your own, where you can attach your own subdomain. And yeah, this is what I teach also while giving demonstration in web app, which is a part of app service. And we will bring our code directly, or we will use the code that is provided by this app service itself, or you can use Docker container based on Linux or Windows. Um, there is like a detailed topic about using a Docker container based on Windows versus Linux. Soon I will be helping you with containerized application deployment on app service, maybe not in a month, but maybe in 2 months, or when um, I see a lot of people will be able to get to this Azure app service. So I can definitely create a video deploying containerized applications with some basics and overview of Docker and how the container works in real life. As of now, we don't need Docker container. We will be deploying our code. Now, the runtime stack is the stack that you're going to use to deploy your application or the code. So at here, we will use .NET Core 3.1 long-term support. I think it's LTS. You can use Java, you can use Node, PHP, Python base when you are developing Django based application, Ruby on Rails base. So as for this, we were going to use .NET Core based. OS that you want it to run in the backend part, Windows. Region, if you keep it Central US, it's okay, but you know that in order to make an optimized pricing plan, you need to keep your resources as closest to your customers. If your target audience is in India, so try to keep in India. Let me just go ahead and check if there is an Indian region available or not. Finally, I think we don't require this. We can always change the standard size to the free size available so that you won't be charged heavily, which is in the development and test environment. And you can choose the cheapest one. For example, the free one is 60 minutes per day and compute. Of course, it comes with some limitations. For example, you cannot create a deployment slot and development slot, I think, which is like when you want to make changes to your website, there is a lag in the first reload of your website, which when customer faces, it's not really good for your business. So that is only possible in production environment and production environment based resources. So at this point, we will be staying in our free zone, apply. We can always go to the deployment, monitoring, tags, review and create, but as of now, we'll keep it simple so that we can get it running. And finally, review and create. Azure platform will check if all the details are correct and it will validate it. After that, you can just click on create. On the notifications, you can see it is trying to deploy this runtime stack and the virtual machine and all those things. And the good thing about such managed service is that whenever there is a Windows update, you don't have to do it by yourself. Whenever there is a runtime stack update, you don't have to do it. Which environment variables to be set where so that it's easy for your application to interact with each other, the components in it. You don't have to worry about that. Okay. So this is what the benefit of this is. And the major part it plays in terms of benefit is that you just bring your code, you focus on business logic, and you don't worry about setting up an IT team and all those things. So that's the reason why you would see a lot of freelancers, a lot of independent developers are developing their own applications and putting them on the marketplace of Azure or even on AWS. So we'll wait for this deployment to proceed. Meanwhile, what we can do is, since our next demonstration of how to publish an application from Visual Studio it is, so let's run our Visual Studio 2019. Let it run in the background. And we see that our deployment is succeeded. on this Azure console. Now this guy is yelling, open me up and create a project, but we're gonna leave it right now as it is. Click on go to resource. Already given you basic application. And when you click on browse, you will see the application running. And you can see this is the first time, this is what I was talking about. The first time loading, whenever there is an application, it's basically the code has to be compiled and then it runs. So the first time running is always expensive and it's time taking. And I can demonstrate you, for example, I have this Postman client. And this is a lot of developers are aware of it. It's very old technology and people are, it's really matured, rather I should say. And it's used to test the APIs, get post requests. And this is a part of different topic, what it is and how it works, etc. So we're just going to test our test application. Okay. And here we're going to put add a request. This is our test get request. And the URL that we are going to test is this one. So Control X, Control V, and send. And you can see it took almost like 700 milliseconds. And you will see successive request will take less time. 168 milliseconds, that's quite faster. 159, 48. And this is, I think, the least time it can take. On average, 150. Okay. So it's the session. It's also about the session. It got attached to that email, this link, but that's a different part of story. So we'll just go back and check what other options are there. Now, if you want anyone to manage this app service plan and let other developers, so there are like access and access control where you can assign people based on their roles who can manage this application, all these kind of things, like letting them access to this particular resource can happen from identity and access management. The one that I was talking about in the deployment, this is where the difference comes into play. Deployment slots are when you have an application which is on the development stage. And we know that there is 3 stages of a web development. There is a test environment, there is a test and development. That means your web application is being tested. And before into production, all the test runs on that if everything is working fine. And then you launch it to the production level. Now, sometimes you're not able to simulate the real life issues that your application can get. So what you can do is you can put your application live and put your live application down to the development level, maybe second level of stage. And then if your application runs fine, if your new feature is running okay, and people are able to use that and consume that, keep that. And in case something crashes, nothing is working out, you can always switch back to the previous stage. So this is what is called your deployment slot. So you have your staged application, there is your production application. And with the click of this swap, you will be able to swap the 2 applications. But this is only possible when you choose the production resource, if you remember what I talked about in the beginning. And there are multiple options. You have TLS and SSL settings. If you want only HTTPS type of request, you can configure here. custom domains, when you want your own domain, you can buy your domain name from GoDaddy and other websites, and you can attach it over here. And something very important part of this app service is automatic scale up and scale out, meaning increasing the RAM, ROM, or increasing number of VM based on your request. Again, this is a part of production. If you want to integrate database, here it is. And there are a lot of features that are important. One of very important feature is core support, which is cross-origin resource sharing. There we go. It's basically, consider that your application is LinkedIn to or inked or something like that. And you have certain resources. For example, you have your data, you have your public data, and you want to share it. You want make it to be shareable to others as well. So earlier it wasn't possible to get content from different origin websites. But now with the help of core support, you can get that. So you can read, allows JavaScript code running in a browser on an external host to interact with your backend, specify the origins that should allow to make cross-origin calls, and all the things. So even that is part of our training when I deliver my training on app service, basically compute service of Azure. So this is overview of how to create a web app from console of Azure. And always remember, once you're done with your testing or how to create a web application or whatever you want to do on Azure, make sure to have a look on the pricing plan. And once you have created, I can leave this application because I am under the free app plan. So there is a certain level of free request I am a part of. So I will always be in the free zone. But as a best practice, if you don't need any resource, it's better to delete that complete resource group as well. So I'm going to go to this resource, go to the resource group that it is a part of. And instead delete the whole resource group. And you can see, because there is an app service plan also attached to it. So I'm going to delete the whole resource group like so. And this will take care of itself. Now let's try to create this app service and try to publish our application from Visual Studio. We will continue, or we can create a new project. And .NET Core, we can choose. Yeah, so it's basically a project template for creating web page that can run on multiple OS. The next part, give your name. So demo app 1. Next. Again, long-term support 0.3 or 3.1. Authentication type, that's a different part. We won't be touching it right now. Again, you have a capability of enabling Docker over here. So again, if you do that, you have option of Linux versus Windows. We will do that. Maybe in future, I will upload some video of basic hello world containerized application, something like that. And then you can click on create. It's creating the project for us. Meanwhile, we can check if our app service plan and the resource group is getting deleted. I think it looks good. And in no time, we will have a application based on .NET Core. So again, as I mentioned, I'm not a geek or I'm not a web developer, but I do know and understand the environment of C#. So I know where to navigate basic pages. So for example, there is your index.html, the first page. Okay, so it's going to be doing some welcome, learn about some web page, their own advertisement. Okay, and then you have app settings, JSON. So it's basically your okay. Let's explore more features. All right. So sometimes in here you will see in later time, um, these are like app settings that your program, your development environment needs, maybe some logins, etc., like that. So it's again a best practice to store your login passwords and key and all those things in such kind of file. And of course, there will be like local environment, local app settings, and there is a remote app setting. So that's a different part. And that comes into functions. So our target is to deploy it to Azure App Service. Now, before doing that, I want you to do one thing is, since you won't be having Azure App Service installed already, so you need to install it before you do anything. Otherwise, you won't get any kind of something like publish, and then you won't get where you want to publish like such things. Azure, you won't get that. So to get that, you have to basically download the extension. So go to the extensions, manage extensions. And here you can download, I think it's app service, or it's gonna be Azure resource. Yep, so here's the one. Azure Logic App Tools for Visual Studio 2019. And you click on this, it will get you a install, just like it will come here. I already have installed, so it shows me green button. It will take some time, some 15-20 minutes. And then you can always rerun your Visual Studio, close the Visual Studio, run it again, and you will see the option that I'm showing it right now. Once done, now time to launch your application or publish your application. Right click on your project, which is like this, publish. And yeah, so it was already here. Add a published profile. We want to deploy that on Azure. Next, app service again, Windows based, next. Now here's the thing that we have done initially on the console. Let's say selecting the subscription, all those things. So you can create a new app service plan or instance, to be precise. And this is the name of the subdomain, for example. So again, Sharik, and subscription name, keep it simple, housing plan. I mean, you can give a new name to the resource group. This is quite complex, but you can give new name by clicking on new. You can just say demo app, okay, and you can select here Central India. Hosting plan, demo app, and then here you can select Central India. Again, keep in the free level. So I think, yeah, it's here, free, and create. That's it. and it will take some time, and I hope my battery don't drain. So it takes maybe like 5 minutes, and whatever your changes you make in your environment here in Visual Studio, you just need to save. And again, since the profile will be already created, you just need to upload the code or make a push basically. But of course, it's not always directly to the code or the website. You always have to commit to Git. I will also show that. I mean, that's a part of our training as well, while training for Azure App Service or Logic App Stack. Yeah, so I do train on that. And since we don't have a deployment slot, so we're going to be just clicking on finish. Once done, you might be thinking now it should be live, but no, not yet. We have to click now on publish. Yeah, so you can see publishing to Azure App Service. And our URL will be this same thing. So let's wait for it to get published. Now this just an overview. This app service is a part of Logic App family, Azure App Service plan. And there are like Logic App, there is like functions, there is Webapp, and each of them has different needs that it solves. For example, if you are a no code, if you don't know how to code, so I think it's the Logic App that will help you. I think it's a Web Jobs or Logic Apps that will help you to get your code done, the flow basically. So this video is not for that, but just to give you that there are 4 methods that you can launch your application. And you can see our application is live. Okay, so this is how you do that from your Visual Studio, and you do that from your Azure console. And again, if you want to delete it, just don't do anything. Go to Azure, go to resource groups, go to the resource group, delete, copy the one, paste it, and should be good. There you go. Let's check if our previous app is deleted. No. Let's delete this one as well. Copy, paste, delete. Okay. So thank you everyone for your time. If you find it useful, please share it with your friends, or if your company and willing me to give some lectures or training to your freshers, engineers, please feel free to contact me. My email address is there on my LinkedIn profile, and it will really help you. And please feel free to write me a message on LinkedIn. And if you are looking for one-on-one, I mean, right now it's difficult to do one-on-one, but please feel free to write. If there is an availability, we will surely have a session if required. So thank you, everyone. Please share your thoughts. What do you feel like about this video? And which topic do you want me to do some video on? In my current stack, I'm into Python, machine learning, Azure, let's say AZ900, AI 900, and cloud practitioner in AWS. So these are the domains that I'm actually covering in. So feel free to write. And if you have any training requirement, please feel free to share that through message or my email, which is available on LinkedIn. And take care, everyone. See you guys. Bye.